Every wolf finds their mate. The bond calls to you under the moon, undeniable and sacred, written in starlight and blessed by the goddess herself. That's what my mother whispered to me every night before she died, her human hands stroking my hair as she promised me a destiny that would make me whole. But when you're the only wolf in your pack who's never shifted, you learn that destiny has favorites, and you're not one of them. My name is Lyra Vale, and tonight was supposed to be the most important night of my life. The harvest moon marking ceremony. The night when unmated wolves from packs across the northern territories gather under the full moon, hoping to feel that sacred pull toward their fated mate. Every wolf over 18 is invited. Every wolf gets their chance at the bond that will define the rest of their existence. Every wolf except me. You're not attending. Alpha Royce didn't even look up from the territory maps spread across his desk when he said it. Just signed another document while my world crumbled around me, his pen scratching across paper like claws on stone. But it's my right, I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded, how desperate. I'm 23. I've waited. You've waited for a wolf that will never come. His eyes finally met mine, cold as river ice in winter. You're wolfless, Lyra. An embarrassment. Do you know what the other packs will think if they see you there? If they realize the Vale pack harbors a defective wolf at a sacred ceremony. Defective. The word he'd called me since my 18th birthday came and went without a transformation. Since every full moon after that passed in silence while the others howled their joy to the sky. Since I became the whispered shame of a pack that had once welcomed my human mother with open arms. My aunt says, I tried again, grasping at any thread of hope. Miriam agrees with me. He stood, towering over me with all the authority of his position. She understands what you refuse to accept. You don't belong at a ceremony for real wolves. You'll stay in your cottage, out of sight. That's final. I should have known better than to hope. Should have known that my cousin Delilah's sweet smile this morning was poison wrapped in sugar. Don't worry, Lyra, she'd purred while adjusting her ceremonial dress, the one I'd helped her sew, my fingers bleeding from needle pricks as I stitched silver thread into moonlight patterns. I'm sure the moon goddess has a plan for you. Maybe as a servant? Someone has to serve the mated pairs their celebration wine. The pack had laughed. Even the Omega wolves, the lowest ranked, had joined in, because I wasn't just wolfless. I was nothing. But I had one desperate hope left. One secret I'd kept locked in my chest for 5 years, guarded like a dying ember that might still spark into flame. Garrett Thorne. I'd felt the pull toward him since I was 15 years old. A phantom tug in my chest whenever he was near, a warmth that spread through my veins when he looked my way. Everyone said I was delusional, that a wolfless girl couldn't feel a mate bond. But I knew. I felt it in my bones, in the human heart that beat where a wolf should have resided. Tonight, when he stood before the gathered packs, he would feel it too. He would call my name. And everyone who'd ever called me broken would have to swallow their words. So I went anyway. I slipped out after dark, wearing a borrowed grey dress that hung loose on my too thin frame. No one had bought me ceremonial clothes. Why waste silver thread on someone who would never be claimed? I braided my blonde hair with trembling fingers, whispered a prayer to a goddess who'd never answered me before, and walked the 3 miles through the forest to the sacred grove. 300 wolves had gathered under the harvest moon. The clearing blazed with torchlight and magic, the air thick with power that made my human senses ache. I recognized wolves from a dozen territories, the Silvercrest pack with their elegant grey pelts, the Ironwood warriors with scars marking their fierce reputation, the Riverside runners known for their speed. All of them dressed in ceremonial finery, all of them standing with their packs, their families, their people. I stood alone at the edge of the gathering, partially hidden behind an ancient oak, and watched as the marking ceremony began. The Alpha Council took their places on the raised stone dais, 7 ancient wolves who governed the territories with iron authority. Alpha Royce among them, his disapproval radiating across the clearing when his eyes found me despite my attempts to hide. My Aunt Miriam stood with the Vale Pack delegation, her face hardening when she spotted me. Delilah smirked. But I didn't care about them anymore. Because Garrett Thorne was stepping onto the dais. My heart hammered against my ribs. The phantom pull I'd felt for years surged stronger, nearly buckling my knees. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change, when I'd finally be vindicated, when the mate bond would prove I wasn't defective, just waiting for the right wolf to see me. Garrett stood tall and commanding in the moonlight, every inch the future alpha of the Vale pack. Dark hair, strong features, the kind of presence that made other wolves instinctively bow their heads. He'd saved me once, 5 years ago, when a rogue wolf had cornered me during a border patrol. The way he'd looked at me afterward, with something almost like wonder in his eyes, I'd replayed that moment 1,000 times, convinced it meant something deeper. He scanned the crowd, his gaze sweeping across hundreds of upturned faces. My breath caught. Please. Please see me. Feel what I feel. His eyes passed over me without pausing. And then he spoke, his voice carrying across the sacred grove with alpha command. Cassidy Rains of the Silvercrest Pack. I claim you as my fated mate. The world stopped. Cassidy stepped forward, beautiful, powerful, the daughter of an allied alpha, her silver dress shimmering like water under moonlight. She was everything I wasn't, confident, acknowledged, wanted. She ascended the dais with grace I'd never possess, and when Garrett pulled her close, when his canines extended and he marked her throat in the ancient ritual, the crowd erupted in celebration. I couldn't breathe. The phantom pull I'd felt snapped like a severed rope, leaving an aching void in its wake. It had never been real. 5 years of hope, of secret dreams, of convincing myself that destiny had a plan for me, all of it crumbled to ash. Did you see the wolfless girl's face? The whisper cut through the cheering like a blade. She actually thought. Pathetic. Someone should tell her that delusion isn't the same as a mate bond. Laughter rippled through the wolves closest to me. Not cruel laughter, worse. Pitying laughter. The kind reserved for children who believe in fairy tales long past the age of innocence. My Aunt Miriam's voice rose above the rest, sharp with satisfaction. I told Royce she'd embarrass us. Look at her, standing there like a ghost at a feast she was never invited to. I ran, branches tore at my borrowed dress as I fled into the forest, my human legs clumsy and slow compared to the wolves I'd left behind. Tears blurred my vision. My chest heaved with sobs I'd held back for years, every humiliation, every rejection, every moment of being invisible finally breaking free in wrenching gasps. I collapsed against an ancient oak tree, its roots twisted and gnarled like the hope that had sustained me. My hands pressed against rough bark as I fought for breath, fought against the truth I could no longer deny. I was not wolfless because I was defective. I was wolfless because I was unwanted. Even by the moon goddess herself. Lyra Vale. The voice cut through my grief like thunder through silence, deep, commanding, impossibly close. I didn't hear him approach. Didn't smell him, my senses too human, too broken. But when a hand extended into my blurred vision, strong and scarred and radiating power that made the air itself hum, I looked up. Into the eyes of Ronan Nightcrest. The Wolf King. You have been lied to long enough, he said, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that stole what little breath I had left. And tonight, I'm going to show you the truth. I stared up at him through tears, my mind struggling to process what my eyes were seeing. Ronan Nightcrest. The Wolf King. The immortal alpha who'd ruled the Northern Territories for 300 years, whose name was spoken in reverent whispers around campfires, whose reputation for ruthless justice made even the most powerful alphas bow their heads in submission. He was kneeling before me in the dirt. My voice cracked. I don't understand. He was nothing like the monster from the stories. Yes, he radiated power, the kind that made my human instinct scream at me to run, but his face held an unexpected gentleness. Dark hair fell across sharp features, and eyes the color of ancient amber studied me with an intensity that should have terrified me but somehow didn't. Instead, I felt seen. Give me your hand, he said quietly. I hesitated, my fingers still pressed against the oak's bark like it was the only solid thing left in a tilting world. Why are you here? How did you? Your hand, Lyra. Something in his tone, not commanding, but urgent, made me extend my trembling fingers toward him. The moment his scarred palm closed around mine, heat exploded up my arm. Not painful, but alive, like lightning contained in skin. I gasped as silver light flickered beneath my flesh, tracing patterns along my veins that I'd never seen before. What is that? I breathed. Your wolf. His thumb brushed across my racing pulse. She's been screaming for years. You just couldn't hear her. The words made no sense. I shook my head, tried to pull away, but he held firm, not restraining me, but anchoring me to something I didn't understand yet. I'm wolfless. Every healer in the Veil Pack has examined me. They all said. They said what they expected to see. His eyes flashed with something dark and dangerous. Tell me, Lyra. When was the last time you felt well? Truly well. I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. Because now that he asked, I couldn't remember. There was always a heaviness in my limbs, a fog in my thoughts, an exhaustion that sleep never cured. I'd assumed it was just part of being defective. The suppressants leave traces, Ronan continued, his voice hardening. Thornveil root extract, administered consistently over years. It's illegal in every territory for good reason. It doesn't just suppress a wolf's ability to shift. It locks them away completely, slowly poisoning both human and wolf until neither can survive. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. No one would. Someone did. He released my hand but stayed kneeling, keeping himself at my eye level. I've been tracking illegal magical disturbances in this region for 3 months. Thornveil leaves a signature in the surrounding environment. Plants wither, animals avoid the area, the very earth rejects it. Every trace led back to the Veil Pack. To you. I thought of my Aunt Miriam's herbal teas, the ones she'd insisted I drink every morning since I turned 18. For your health, she'd said. To strengthen your human constitution since you'll never have a wolf's resilience. The memory took on a sinister edge. But why? The question came out broken. Why would anyone do that to me? Ronan's expression softened. That's what I came here to find out. But the moment I entered that ceremony clearing and felt your presence. He paused, something flickering across his face, vulnerability, perhaps, in a king who'd learned to show none. The mate bond recognized you instantly. Even through the suppression, even with your wolf locked away, I knew. The world tilted again. That's impossible. I'm nothing. You are moon-blessed. His voice cut through my protest like steel. Ancient bloodline, chosen by the goddess herself. That's why you were suppressed, Lyra. Someone feared what you would become. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. I can't even shift. How am I supposed to be anything special? Because they poisoned you before you had the chance. He stood then, offering his hand again. Your 18th birthday should have been your first transformation. Someone made sure it never happened. I stared at his outstretched palm, my mind reeling. 5 years of shame, of believing I was defective, of watching other wolves live the life I'd been denied, and it was all a lie? Someone had stolen this from me? Who? The word came out as a growl, something feral rising in my chest that I'd never felt before. My wolf, perhaps, finally able to respond to rage instead of grief. Come with me, and we'll find out together. Ronan's hand remained steady. I can break the suppression. Right now, in front of everyone who ever called you worthless. But I need your permission. Why do you need my permission? You're the Wolf King. You could just. Because you've had enough choices stolen from you. His amber eyes held mine. This one is yours. Stay here, hide in the forest, let them continue believing their lies. Or return to that ceremony and let me show them the truth. My heart hammered against my ribs. Return to the clearing where 300 wolves had just watched my humiliation? Where Garrett had claimed another woman while I stood invisible? Where my own pack had mocked me? The old Lyra, the broken, desperate girl who'd arrived at the ceremony with foolish hope, wanted to disappear into the forest and never be seen again. But something else stirred inside me now. Something that had been caged for 5 years, fed poison and lies, kept small and silent. My wolf. And she was furious. If you're wrong, I said slowly, if I'm just broken and you're mistaken about all of this, then I'm wrong. He said it with absolute conviction. But I've lived 300 years, Lyra Vale. I've seen every kind of power this world has to offer. And you, suppressed, poisoned, locked away, you still radiate enough magic to call to me across miles. You are not broken. You are drowning in power that was never allowed to surface. I looked down at my hands. In the moonlight, I could still see the faint silver traces beneath my skin where he'd touched me. Evidence of something I'd been told my entire adult life didn't exist. What happens after? I asked. After you break the suppression, you become who you were always meant to be. He smiled then, and it transformed his face from stone king to something almost boyish. And whoever poisoned you answers for it. I thought of my Aunt Miriam's satisfied smirk, of Delilah's cruel laughter, of Alpha Royce's cold dismissal, of Garrett looking through me like I was invisible, of 5 years stolen. I took Ronan's hand. Show me the truth. His fingers closed around mine, and this time the heat that flooded through me felt like coming home. The mate bond, real, undeniable, nothing like the phantom pull I'd imagined with Garrett, settled into place with a rightness that made my breath catch. Hold on to me, Ronan said quietly. When we walk back into that clearing, everything changes. There's no going back after this. I gripped his hand tighter. Good. I'm done hiding. We walked through the forest together, the Wolf King and the girl everyone called Worthless. With each step, I felt something awakening inside me, not fully, not yet, but stirring like a creature too long imprisoned finally sensing freedom. By the time we reached the edge of the ceremonial clearing, music and laughter still drifting through the trees, my fear had crystallized into determination. They had stolen 5 years from me. Tonight, I would take back everything. The music died the moment we stepped into the firelight. 300 wolves turned as one, their conversations cutting off mid-word. I saw shock ripple through the crowd like a physical wave. Saw Garrett freeze mid-dance with Cassidy still in his arms, his face draining of color. Saw my Aunt Miriam go pale as death, her confident posture crumbling into something that looked like terror. And Ronan Nightcrest, the Wolf King himself, smiled like a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. Forgive the interruption, he said, his voice carrying across the sacred grove with ancient power. But it seems this ceremony was built on deception. And I've never been one to tolerate lies. The silence that followed Ronan's words was absolute. 300 wolves stood frozen like a painting of the ceremony rather than the living, breathing celebration it had been moments before. Even the torches seemed to still, their flames bending toward us as if the fire itself recognized the Wolf King's presence. I felt every eye on me, the wolfless girl who'd fled in tears, now returning hand in hand with the most powerful alpha in existence. My borrowed grey dress was torn and dirty, my face still streaked with dried tears, but I forced myself to stand straight. To not cower under their stares the way I'd done my entire life. Ronan's thumb brushed reassuringly across my knuckles, a private gesture that steadied my racing heart. The Alpha Council rose from their seats on the dais, 7 ancient wolves bristling with authority and confusion. Alpha Royce stepped forward, his expression caught between fury at my defiance and fear of the king who'd appeared uninvited. Your Majesty. He bowed, though the gesture was stiff. We are honored by your presence, but I assure you this ceremony has been conducted according to all sacred traditions. Has it? Ronan's voice cut through the platitude like a blade through silk. He didn't release my hand as he surveyed the gathered wolves with eyes that had witnessed centuries of lies. Tell me, Alpha Royce. Is it tradition to exclude a wolf from the marking ceremony based on false information? Royce's jaw tightened. Lyra Vale is wolfless. It would be disrespectful to the sacred ritual too. She is not wolfless. The declaration rang out across the clearing with absolute authority. She has been systematically poisoned with Thornvale root extract for 5 years. Her wolf has been locked away by illegal magic, her mate bond clouded, her destiny stolen. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Thornvale was a name spoken only in warnings. Every wolf knew its effects, knew that possessing it carried exile or death. To use it on another wolf was one of the highest crimes in our society. That's absurd, Alpha Royce sputtered, but I saw doubt flicker across his face. Saw him glance toward my Aunt Miriam, who stood frozen among the Vale Pack delegation. Our healers examined her repeatedly. Your healers saw what they expected to see. Ronan's hand tightened protectively around mine. Thornvale poisoning mimics wolflessness perfectly. That's why it's so dangerous. By the time most victims realize what's happening, the damage is irreversible. My stomach turned. Irreversible. He looked down at me, and for a moment the king's mask slipped to show genuine concern. Not in your case. You're strong enough to survive the breaking. But it will hurt. I don't care. The words came out steady, stronger than I felt. I want the truth. Movement on the dais drew my attention. Garrett had finally released Cassidy, his new mate stumbling backward in confusion. He descended the stone steps, his eyes locked on me with an expression I couldn't read. Lyra. His voice carried across the distance between us. What is this? What lies have you been telling the Wolf King? Rage ignited in my chest, 5 years of rage I'd swallowed down, convinced I had no right to anger when I was the defective one. I've told him nothing but truth, I said, my voice shaking not with fear but with fury. Which is more than you ever gave me. I don't know what you mean. Don't. Ronan's single word carried enough command to make Garrett stumble backward. Don't insult her intelligence or mine. You felt the mate bond forming months ago. And you severed it. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Mate bond severance was possible but dangerous, a ritual that required dark magic and left scars on the soul. It was used only in the most desperate circumstances, never casually. Never for politics. Garrett's face flushed. I don't have to explain myself to. You severed a sacred bond for an alliance. Ronan's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. You felt your fated mate calling to you, and you cut her away like diseased flesh. Because she appeared wolfless. Because claiming her would have been politically inconvenient. My father needed the Silvercrest alliance. Garrett's composure finally cracked. A mate bond with a wolfless Omega would have destroyed everything we've built. The admission hung in the air like poison. I'd known, on some level, that what I felt toward Garrett had been real. But hearing him confirm it, hearing him admit he'd felt the bond and deliberately destroyed it, shattered something inside me. Not my heart. That had broken in the forest. This was deeper. This was the final death of the girl who'd believed love could overcome anything. You felt it, I whispered. All those years, I thought I was insane. And you knew. Garrett had the grace to look ashamed. You have to understand. I understand perfectly. My voice gained strength with each word. You chose power over truth. Status over your mate. And you let me believe I was broken. Cassidy stepped forward then, her beautiful face twisted with rage and humiliation. This is ridiculous. She's lying. She's always been obsessed with Garrett. Everyone knows it. This is just a desperate attempt to ruin what we have. Is it? Ronan's attention shifted to her with predatory focus. Tell me, Cassidy Rains. Did Garrett inform you that you were his second choice? That he severed a sacred mate bond to claim you instead? The color drained from Cassidy's face. She turned to Garrett, searching for denial, but found only guilty silence. You told me the bond was instant. That you knew the moment you saw me. It was necessary, Garrett said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. The crowd watched the drama unfold with rapt attention, the sacred ceremony forgotten in favor of this public unraveling. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Enough. Ronan's voice commanded silence again. This is not about failed relationships or wounded pride. This is about a crime that has gone unpunished for 5 years. He turned, his gaze sweeping across the Veil Pack delegation until it landed on my Aunt Miriam. She stood rigid, her face carefully neutral, but I saw her hands trembling at her sides. Miriam Veil. Step forward. The crowd parted like water, creating a clear path between her and the center of the clearing. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, with her chin lifted in defiance, she walked toward us. My cousin Delilah tried to follow, but Miriam waved her back. Your Majesty. Miriam's courtesy was perfect, her voice steady. I'm honored, though I confess I don't understand why you've called me forward. Don't you? Ronan released my hand and circled her slowly, a wolf assessing prey. How long have you been dosing your niece with Thornvale extract? I would never. She pressed a hand to her chest in a gesture of offense. I've done nothing but care for the girl since her parents died. Provided her a home, food, education. Answer the question. His voice dropped to something that made several wolves in the crowd whimper. When did you first poison Lyra Vale? Miriam's mask of innocence held firm. This is slander. I have served the Veil Pack faithfully for decades. I would never use illegal magic. The herbal tea. My voice cut through her protest, quiet but clear. Every morning since I turned 18. You said it was for my health. My aunt's eyes flicked to me, and for just a moment, I saw calculation there. Saw her weighing whether to continue the lie or shift tactics. It was for your health. Her tone turned condescending, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. You were weak, sickly. The tea had strengthening herbs. Thornvale root. Ronan produced a small glass vial from his jacket, holding it up to catch the torchlight. Inside, silver-green liquid swirled like captured smoke. Taken from Lyra's bloodstream an hour ago when I first found her in the forest. There's enough residue here to prove 5 years of consistent dosing. The crowd's murmur turned ugly. Wolves pressed closer, their eyes flashing with predatory interest. Miriam's carefully constructed composure began to crack at the edges. Where did you get that? She demanded. You had no right. I had every right. She's my mate. The declaration sent shockwaves through the assembly. Which means any crime against her is a crime against me. Against the crown itself. My aunt's face transformed in an instant, from indignant innocence to something cold and calculated. The mask dropped completely, revealing the woman who'd smiled while slowly destroying me. Fine, she spat. Yes. I gave her Thornvale. Do you know what I saw the day her mother died? Her voice rose, bitter and sharp. The healers said the girl would be powerful. Potentially alpha-blessed. My own daughter, my blood, was already showing as a common beater. And this half-breed orphan was going to overshadow everything we'd built. The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. The confession shattered the last pretense of civility in the clearing. Wolves snarled and pressed forward, their instincts demanding justice for a crime that violated every sacred law. Even members of the Vale Pack looked at my aunt with horror and disgust, stepping away from her like she carried plague. You poisoned a child. Alpha Royce's voice shook with barely contained rage. A member of your own family. For ambition. Miriam laughed, a brittle, broken sound. Don't pretend you wouldn't have done the same. All of you, standing there in judgment, how many of you have eliminated threats to your bloodlines? How many have arranged convenient accidents or beneficial matings? None of us used Thornvale on an innocent girl, one of the council members growled. Innocent. Miriam's eyes blazed with old resentment. Her mother was human. A pollution of our bloodline that my sister embraced like it was something to celebrate. And then this half-breed started showing signs of power that should have been impossible. Because she's moon-blessed. Ronan's interruption was cold and absolute. Ancient bloodline, chosen by the goddess. Your sister carried dormant genes that combined with alpha blood to create something extraordinary. And you tried to destroy it out of petty jealousy. It wasn't petty. Miriam's composure shattered completely. Do you know what it's like to watch your own child be overlooked? Delilah was sweet, obedient, everything a proper wolf should be. But no one looked at her twice because they were all waiting to see what the orphan would become. I stared at the woman who'd taken me in after my parents' car accident. Who'd held me while I cried, who'd promised I'd always have a home, who'd smiled while pouring poison into my tea every single morning for 5 years. I trusted you, I whispered. Her eyes found mine, and for a moment something that might have been regret flickered there. Then it hardened back into resentment. You shouldn't have. Trust is for wolves who know their place. The crowd erupted in angry snarls. Several wolves lunged forward, but Ronan raised his hand and they froze mid-step, compelled by the sheer force of his authority. Your confession is noted, he said coldly. Your sentence will be determined after we address the damage you've caused. He turned back to me, and his expression softened from king to mate. Lyra. Breaking a 5-year suppression will be painful. Your wolf has been caged so long she'll fight to get free. Are you certain you want to do this now, in front of everyone? I looked around the clearing. At Garrett, who'd severed our bond for politics. At Cassidy, who'd unknowingly stolen what should have been mine. At my cousin Delilah, crying in shame. At the hundreds of wolves who'd called me worthless. Yes, I said firmly. Let them all see what they tried to bury. Ronan nodded once, then addressed the crowd. What you're about to witness is ancient magic. King's magic, granted to enforce justice and protect the innocent. Do not interfere, no matter what you see. He produced a small silver blade from his jacket, ceremonial, etched with symbols I didn't recognize. This will hurt, he said quietly, for my ears alone. But I'll be with you through all of it. I'm not afraid of pain anymore. I extended my wrist toward him. I'm afraid of staying broken. Something fierce and proud flashed in his amber eyes. You were never broken. The blade cut across his palm first, blood welling dark and rich with power. Then he took my hand, his thumb gentle against my racing pulse, and drew the silver edge across my wrist. The pain was sharp but brief, my human blood mixing with his ancient magic. When he pressed our bleeding palms together, the world exploded. Silver light erupted from our joined hands, blinding and beautiful, spreading up my arm like wildfire through dry grass. I felt it in my veins, in my bones, in the marrow itself, searching, finding, breaking. The Thornvale poison fought back. 5 years of accumulated magic resisted the purge, clinging to my system like tar. I screamed as the two forces warred inside me, Ronan's healing magic burning away the suppression while my body convulsed with the shock of it. Hold on, Ronan commanded, his other arm wrapping around my waist as my legs buckled. Your wolf is fighting. Let her through. I felt her then. Truly felt her for the first time, not a phantom presence or wishful thinking, but a living, breathing part of me that had been screaming in silence for 5 years. She was furious. Desperate. Starving for freedom. The suppression shattered like glass inside my chest. Power flooded through me in a tidal wave, not gradually, not gently, but all at once, 5 years of denied transformation trying to happen simultaneously. My bones shifted and reset, my senses exploded into overwhelming sharpness, and something ancient and primal surged forward with a howl that I felt rather than heard. I collapsed to my knees, Ronan going down with me, still holding our bleeding palms together as silver light poured from the wound like liquid starlight. That's it, he murmured. Let her out. Don't fight it. But I wasn't fighting. I was drowning in sensation, the overwhelming scent of 300 wolves, the sound of hearts beating like drums, the taste of magic thick in the air. Every sense I'd been denied crashed over me at once, and I couldn't process it fast enough. Through the chaos, I heard gasps from the crowd. Her eyes. Look at her eyes. I didn't know what they were seeing. Couldn't focus beyond the transformation trying to claw its way out of my skin. My wolf wanted to shift completely, wanted to burst free after 5 years in chains, but my body didn't remember how. The mechanics were forgotten, the instinct suppressed too long. So we met halfway. My eyes opened, I hadn't realized I'd closed them, and the world looked different. Sharper. Brighter. Colors I'd never seen before painted the clearing in impossible hues. I could see magic itself, threads of it connecting wolves to their mates, their packs, their territories. And when I looked at Ronan, the thread between us blazed like a silver cord made of moonlight itself. Not wolfless, he said softly, a smile playing at his lips. Never wolfless. I raised my free hand and saw it glowing with the same silver light that poured from our joined palms. When I met the eyes of wolves in the crowd, they flinched back, not from fear of me, but from the power radiating off me in waves. Moon-blessed. The words made sense now. I could feel the goddess's touch in my veins, ancient and undeniable. My wolf settled inside me, still restless but no longer trapped. She couldn't fully emerge yet. We needed time to heal, to relearn what had been stolen, but her presence was solid and real and mine. How do you feel? Ronan asked. I flexed my fingers, watching silver light dance across my knuckles. Like I've been asleep my entire life. And I just woke up. He helped me to my feet, and I swayed slightly as my newly awakened senses tried to adjust to standing. The crowd watched in stunned silence, and I realized what they were seeing. The wolfless girl they'd mocked now radiating power that made even alphas uncomfortable. Garrett stood frozen at the edge of the dais, his face pale. Lyra, I didn't know, if I'd known what you truly were. You'd have kept the bond. I cut him off, my voice stronger than it had ever been. You'd have chosen differently if you'd known I was powerful. His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I turned away from him, from the male who'd severed our bond because I appeared weak. You didn't want a mate. You wanted an advantage. Cassidy made a wounded sound, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, an alpha mate, a powerful alliance. That her mate had settled for her instead of choosing her freely was her problem to reconcile. Ronan's hand found mine again, not our bleeding palms this time, but a simple interlacing of fingers that felt more intimate than any magic. We're not finished here. He addressed my aunt, who'd been held in place by two of his guards during the breaking ceremony. Miriam Vale. You poisoned a moon-blessed wolf for 5 years, suppressing her sacred gifts and denying her destiny. You have confessed to this crime before 300 witnesses. Miriam's defiance had crumbled into something that looked like despair. She'd gambled on keeping me weak forever, and the bet had failed spectacularly. What's the sentence for such a crime? Someone called from the crowd. Traditionally. Ronan's voice carried across the clearing. Death. Thornvale poisoning of a moon-blessed wolf is an offense against the goddess herself. Miriam went white as snow. But Ronan looked at me. However, the victim has the right to choose mercy. This is Lyra's justice to claim. Every eye turned to me. My aunt, who'd smiled while destroying me. Who'd stolen 5 years I could never get back. Who'd made me believe I was nothing. I should have wanted her dead. Instead, I felt empty. Killing her wouldn't return the years she'd stolen. Wouldn't erase the damage. Would only add more pain to a situation already drowning in it. Exile, I said quietly. Strip her of rank and pack. Send her into the territories alone, wolfless in everything but body. Let her live with the same isolation she forced on me. Miriam's eyes widened. For a wolf, exile was a fate worse than death. Cut off from pack bonds, territory rights, protection. She'd survive, but she'd be nothing. Exactly what she tried to make me. So be it. Ronan's pronouncement was final. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with destiny and impossibility. You are my fated mate. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The silver light still pulsed beneath my skin where our palms pressed together, his blood mixing with mine in an ancient seal I didn't understand but felt in every cell of my body. Then it happened. The mate bond didn't slide into place gently. It crashed through me like an avalanche, devastating and complete. Every nerve ending caught fire. My wolf, gods, my wolf, surged forward with a joy so fierce it brought tears to my eyes. She recognized him. Had known him the moment he'd knelt before me in the forest, offering his scarred hand like a lifeline. This was nothing like what I'd felt with Garrett. That had been a whisper, a shadow, an echo of something that might have been. This was a roar. This was the moon herself singing in my veins. Ronan's eyes blazed silver white, matching mine. The air crackled between us, visible energy rippling like heat waves. Every wolf in the clearing could sense it, the unmistakable signature of a true mate bond igniting. It felt like coming home to a place I'd never been, like remembering a language I'd never learned. Breathe, Ronan murmured, his thumb stroking the inside of my wrist. The touch sent sparks racing up my arm. I know it's intense. But you're safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. I'd never been safe. But looking into his ancient eyes, feeling my wolf settle against his like she'd been waiting centuries for this moment, I almost believed him. The clearing erupted into chaos. A royal mating, someone shouted, and the sound was picked up, echoed, until it became a chant. Some wolves dropped to their knees in reverence. Others surged forward, eager to witness history. A mating between a moon-blessed wolf and the immortal wolf king hadn't happened in recorded history, but not everyone was celebrating. This is absurd. Alpha Thorn, Garrett's father, bellowed from the dais, his face purple with rage. She's been wolfless for 5 years. Suddenly she's moon-blessed? This is manipulation, some kind of trick. My father is right, Garrett said, but his voice cracked. He couldn't look away from where Ronan held my hand. Lyra, what is this? What lies have you? Ronan's growl cut him off mid-sentence. It wasn't loud, but it resonated through the clearing like rolling thunder. Every wolf went silent. Even the alphas on the council shifted uncomfortably. Choose your next words carefully, alpha pup, Ronan said softly. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. You severed your own mate bond for politics. You have forfeited any right to question hers. Garrett's face went white. Beside him, Cassidy stiffened, her perfectly manicured fingers digging into his arm. She's just a desperate girl, my lord, Cassidy said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She's been obsessed with Garrett for years. Everyone knows she's delusional. This is just another. Stop. My voice surprised me. It came out stronger than I'd ever heard it, resonating with a power I didn't know I possessed. My wolf pushed it forward, lending me her strength. Every eye turned to me. I never asked for this, I said, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking at the ground. I met Cassidy's gaze head-on. I never wanted to be seen as pathetic. I just wanted to understand why I felt a bond no one else could feel. Why I was broken when everyone else was whole. Garrett flinched. For just a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped, and I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, guilt, maybe even regret. You felt it, I said, turning to him. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. Months ago, you felt it. And you cut it. You chose her, chose politics, chose everything except the truth. And you let me think I was insane. Lyra, he started, taking a step toward me. Ronan moved like lightning, placing himself between us. He didn't touch Garrett, didn't need to. His presence alone was a wall. She's finished speaking to you, Ronan said. Your next conversation will be with my executioner if you take another step. The crowd rippled with shock. Whispers spread like wildfire. The Wolf King didn't make idle threats. This ceremony was built on lies, Ronan continued, his voice carrying across the clearing. Garrett Thorne, you are stripped of your claim to the Vale Pack Alpha title. Your father will answer for your actions and his complicity in magical suppression within his territory. Alpha Thorne surged to his feet, but two of Ronan's guards materialized from the shadows, their hands on their weapons. Ronan turned to Cassidy's father, Alpha Reigns of the Silvercrest Pack. The man had gone very still, calculating. Your daughter was used as a pawn, Ronan said, his tone slightly softer. I bear her no ill will. But the alliance you sought through deception is void. You will withdraw your wolves from Vale territory by dawn. Alpha Reigns bowed his head in acceptance. He was smart enough not to challenge the Wolf King's judgment. Beside him, Cassidy looked ready to shatter, her perfect composure cracking like thin ice. The guards were already dragging my Aunt Miriam toward the edge of the clearing. She fought against them, snarling and spitting curses. You ungrateful wretch, she shrieked at me. I took you in. I clothed you, fed you, gave you a home when no one else wanted you. Something inside me snapped. The rage I'd been swallowing for 5 years, every humiliation, every whispered insult, every moment I'd made myself small, erupted like a volcano. I pulled away from Ronan and walked toward her. My wolf prowled beneath my skin, and I could feel my eyes glowing silver white. The guards holding Miriam stepped back instinctively. You didn't take me in from kindness, I said, my voice eerily calm. You took me in to control me. To diminish me. To make sure I never outshone your daughter. Miriam's face contorted with rage and something else, fear. She could see what I was becoming. You poisoned me, I continued, stepping closer. For 5 years. Since my 18th birthday. You locked my wolf away because you were terrified of what I'd become. You were right to be terrified. You were nothing. Miriam spat. A half-blood orphan. I made you useful by keeping you small. My wolf snarled, and I let her. Let Miriam see the power she tried so desperately to suppress. Silver light flickered around my hands, and the ground beneath us trembled slightly. I was never small, I said softly. You were just terrified of what I'd become. Ronan appeared at my shoulder, his hand gentle on the small of my back. The touch grounded me, pulled me back from the edge of losing control. That's enough, he said quietly, for my ears only. She's not worth your power. He was right. I took a breath, forced my wolf to settle. The silver light faded. Ronan addressed the assembly one final time. Miriam Vale, you are guilty of illegal magical assault, conspiracy against a moon-blessed wolf, and poisoning. You are exiled from all pack territories, effective immediately. If you are found within any pack lands after dawn, the penalty is death. The guards dragged her away. Her curses faded into the night, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just a hollow relief that it was finally over. The clearing slowly emptied as wolves dispersed, some shooting me curious glances, others bowing respectfully. The world felt surreal, like I was watching everything happen to someone else. Ronan turned to me, his hand still warm on my back. His eyes had returned to their normal dark intensity, but the mate bond thrummed between us, a living thing. You have a choice, Lyra, he said, and his voice held no command, no expectation. Just an offer. Come with me to the Northern Court. Claim your place as my queen. Or stay here and rebuild your life among those who scorned you. Either way, you are free. Free. The word felt foreign on my tongue. I'd never been free. I'd been trapped in my aunt's house, trapped by my supposed wolflessness, trapped by the lies everyone told about me. But when I looked into Ronan's eyes, I knew my answer. It wasn't the mate bond making the decision, though it sang with approval. It was me. My wolf. My choice. I'll come with you, I said. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because my wolf knows you. And I want to know you too. Something fierce and tender flashed in his eyes. He raised my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my blood-stained knuckles. Then let's go home. Home. Another foreign word. But maybe, just maybe, I could learn what it meant. We left the ceremony behind like shedding old skin. Wolves parted as we walked through the clearing, Ronan's hand steady at the small of my back. Some bowed. Others stared with naked curiosity or barely concealed hostility. I felt their eyes on me like physical touches, assessing, judging, wondering how the wolfless girl had become a queen in the span of an hour. I kept my chin up. My wolf prowled beneath my skin, restless and protective, lending me a confidence I'd never possessed before. I wasn't the same girl who'd stood at the edge of this clearing in a borrowed dress, invisible and unwanted. Just before we reached the tree line, someone called my name. Lyra, wait. I turned to see Elena picking her way through the dispersing crowd. She was an older Omega, maybe 60, with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes. She'd always been gentle with me, had slipped me food when my aunt forgot to pack my lunch, had smiled at me in passing when others looked through me like I was made of glass. Elena, I said, my throat suddenly tight. She reached us and took both my hands in hers, ignoring the dried blood still staining my palm. Her eyes glistened with tears. I knew you weren't broken, child, she said softly. I could see it. The way you carried yourself, the strength in you even when you were trying to disappear. I'm sorry I never said it louder. I'm sorry I let them make you feel small. Something cracked open in my chest. Through all the chaos and revelations, this small kindness hit harder than I expected. I squeezed her hands. You were kind, I said. When no one else was. That mattered more than you know. She pulled me into a brief, fierce hug, then stepped back, wiping her eyes. Go be the queen you were always meant to be. Ronan inclined his head respectfully to her, then guided me into the forest. 3 black SUVs waited on the road beyond the ceremonial grounds, sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the ancient ritual we'd just left behind. Guards in dark clothing stood at attention, but their postures relaxed slightly when Ronan approached. He opened the door to the lead vehicle himself, handed me in like I was something precious. The interior was all black leather and tinted windows. I sank into the seat, and exhaustion hit me like a physical blow. The adrenaline that had been sustaining me drained away, leaving me hollow and shaking. Ronan slid in beside me, closed the door. The sounds of the outside world muted instantly. For the first time since he'd found me crying against that oak tree, we were truly alone. The car pulled away smoothly. I watched through the window as the ceremonial grounds disappeared behind us, then the veil-packed territory itself. The place I'd lived my entire life, the only home I'd ever known, and I felt nothing but relief to leave it behind. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The mate bond hummed quietly, a constant awareness of him beside me. I could feel his warmth, his steady presence, the way his breathing matched mine without either of us trying. Finally, I found my voice. Why did you come tonight? I asked, turning to look at him. How did you even know about me? Ronan's expression was thoughtful, those ancient eyes studying me in the dim light of the car. I've been tracking illegal magical activity for months, he said. Thornveil extract leaves a trace, a specific magical signature. My investigators followed it to the veil-packed territory. You have investigators? A hint of a smile touched his lips. I've been alive for 300 years, Lyra. I have many things. But yes, I maintain a network of wolves loyal to me across all territories. When they reported consistent Thornveil traces centered around a single individual, I became interested. When I learned that individual was a young woman who'd been declared wolfless at 18, I became concerned. He shifted slightly, and his hand found mine on the seat between us. The contact sent warmth spreading up my arm. When I realized what was being done to you, he continued, his voice dropping lower, I came myself. I couldn't delegate this. Something about the entire situation felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. You didn't have to, I said quietly. I'm nobody. Why would the Wolf King himself? His eyes flashed, and his grip on my hand tightened. Don't diminish yourself like that. You're my mate. You're moon-blessed. And you survived 5 years of poisoning without breaking, without giving up, without losing the core of who you are. You are not nobody. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. My wolf preened at his words, at his defense of us. When did you? I hesitated, then pushed forward. When did you feel it? The mate bond. The moment I saw you in the forest, he said without hesitation. You were crying, covered in scratches from running through the undergrowth, wearing a torn dress and devastation on your face. And I felt it snap into place so hard it nearly brought me to my knees. I stared at him. That fast. I've waited 300 years, Lyra. I'd begun to think the moon goddess had forgotten me. That I was meant to be alone for eternity as punishment for something I'd done in my youth. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Then I saw you, and everything made sense. Every year of loneliness was worth it if it led me to you. My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. I don't know how to be what you need, I whispered. I can't even shift properly yet. I don't know how to be a queen, how to navigate royal politics, how to... Lyra. He cupped my face with his free hand, tilting my chin up so I had to meet his eyes. You don't need to be anything but yourself. We'll figure out the rest together. I'm not looking for a perfect queen who knows all the rules and can shift at will. I'm looking for a partner. An equal. Someone who challenges me, who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong, who has the strength to stand beside me. I'm terrified, I admitted. So am I, he said, and the honesty in his voice shocked me. I've been alone for so long, I've forgotten how to share my life with someone. I've been the Wolf King for centuries, cold, distant, making decisions without considering anyone else's needs. You're going to have to teach me how to be a mate again. Something loosened in my chest. He wasn't expecting perfection. He was offering partnership. We're both going to mess this up sometimes, aren't we? I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. Probably spectacularly, he agreed, his own smile softening his severe features. But we'll figure it out together. The car slowed, and I looked out to see we'd arrived at a sprawling estate, all stone and modern glass nestled against a hillside. Lights glowed warm in the windows. We'll stop here for the night, Ronan said. It's one of my properties. You need rest, and... He hesitated, which seemed unlike him. Your wolf is restless. I thought you might want to try shifting again. In a controlled environment. With me there. My wolf perked up instantly at the suggestion, eager and hopeful. But anxiety twisted in my stomach. What if I can't? I asked. What if it's still broken? Then we try again tomorrow. And the day after that. And every day until your wolf remembers how. He brought my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. You were suppressed for 5 years. Your wolf needs time to remember how. This isn't failure, Lyra. It's healing. We went inside, and the estate staff, more wolves, all of whom bowed to Ronan and eyed me with cautious curiosity, showed us to a moonlit clearing behind the main building. It was private, surrounded by tall pines, the ground soft with moss. I'll shift first, Ronan said, already shrugging out of his jacket. So you can see there's nothing to fear. He undressed unself-consciously, and I tried not to stare at the scars crossing his back, the sheer powerful build of him. Then he shifted. The transformation was fluid, practiced, beautiful. One moment a man stood before me, the next a massive black wolf with silver-streaked fur and eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence. He was easily twice the size of any wolf I'd ever seen, radiating power and dominance. But when he looked at me, those eyes were gentle. My wolf surged forward eagerly, wanting to meet him, to run with him. I closed my eyes, reached for that new presence inside me, tried to let the shift happen. Pain. My bones started to shift, then locked. My skin prickled with fur that wouldn't emerge. I gasped, fell to my knees, tried again. Nothing. Just frustration and the crushing disappointment of failure. I can't, I choked out, tears streaming down my face. It's still broken. I'm still. Ronan shifted back, pulled me against his chest before I could finish that sentence. He was warm and solid, and I let myself break against him, crying out 5 years of pain and humiliation. You're not broken, he murmured into my hair, his arms tight around me. Your wolf is there. I can feel her. She just needs time to remember how. This isn't failure, love. This is healing. I cried until I had nothing left, and he held me through all of it, patient and steady. When I finally quieted, hiccuping against his shoulder, he tilted my face up. We have time, he said. All the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. That night, he carried me inside and stayed with me until I fell asleep, the mate bond wrapped around us like a blanket, keeping the nightmares at bay. I woke to sunlight streaming through enormous windows and the disorienting sensation of silk sheets against my skin. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back, the ceremony, the curse breaking, Ronan, the mate bond humming steadily in my chest like a second heartbeat. I was in the northern court. In the Wolf King's fortress. A soft knock at the door made me sit up, clutching the sheets. A young woman entered, carrying a tray of food and a set of clothes draped over her arm. She had warm brown eyes and a genuine smile. Good morning, my lady, she said, setting the tray on a side table. The king asked me to bring you breakfast. He's waiting for you in the training yard whenever you're ready. Training yard? I repeated, my voice still rough with sleep. Her smile widened. He thought you might want to meet your wolf properly today. The clothes are for training, comfortable but durable. After she left, I ate quickly, my stomach growling at the sight of real food. Then I examined the clothes, dark leggings, a fitted tank top, and a lightweight jacket. Everything was my size, which meant Ronan had been paying attention. The fortress was massive, all ancient stone blended seamlessly with modern architecture. Wolves passed me in the corridors, and every single one stopped to bow or nod respectfully. Some stared with open curiosity. Others whispered as I passed. I caught fragments. Moon-blessed, the king's mate, can she even shift? I kept my head high, even as doubt gnawed at me. The training yard was an open courtyard surrounded by high walls. Ronan stood in the center, shirtless and sparring with a grizzled older wolf I recognized from last night, Marcus, his beater. They moved like liquid violence, blocking and striking with a speed that made my breath catch. Then Ronan saw me. He stopped mid-strike, grabbed a shirt from the fence, and pulled it on as he crossed to me. Sweat gleamed on his skin, and his hair was tousled. He looked more alive than I'd ever seen him. Good morning, he said, and the warmth in his voice made my wolf purr. Ready to meet your wolf properly? I glanced at Marcus, who was watching me with undisguised skepticism. I'm not sure You are, Ronan said firmly. He took my hand, led me to the center of the yard. We'll start with basics. Strength training, learning to channel your wolf senses even without shifting. You've spent 5 years disconnected from her. We need to rebuild that bridge. For the next 2 hours, he put me through my paces. We started with combat forms, basic defensive stances and strikes. I was clumsy at first, tripping over my own feet, my movements jerky and uncertain. Stop apologizing, Ronan said for the 3rd time. You have warrior's blood. Stop apologizing for taking up space. I gritted my teeth and tried again. This time, when he came at me with a controlled strike, I managed to block it properly. His eyes gleamed with approval. Better. Again. We worked until sweat soaked through my clothes and my muscles screamed. But something was happening. Each time I reached for my wolf, asking her to lend me her strength, she responded a little faster. My senses sharpened. I could smell the distinct sense of different wolves around the fortress, could hear conversations happening rooms away. Now, Ronan said, circling me slowly, let's see what happens when you stop thinking and start feeling. He moved fast, coming at me from the left. My wolf surged instinctively, and suddenly everything slowed down. I saw the opening in his guard, moved without thinking, and My hand wasn't a hand anymore. Claws extended, silver white and gleaming. My eyes must have changed too, because Ronan's face split into a fierce grin. There she is. I stared at my partially shifted hand in wonder and terror. The claws retracted slowly as I lost concentration, but the fact that they'd appeared at all felt like a miracle. I did it, I whispered. You did it, Ronan confirmed. Want to try again? This time, when he sparred with me, I let my wolf rise to the surface without fear. Claws extended and retracted. My reflexes sharpened until I was moving almost as fast as him. At one point, I actually managed to pin him, briefly, before he reversed our positions with a laugh. He looked up at me from the ground, breathing hard, his eyes bright with something that made heat pool in my stomach. Devastating, he said softly. Marcus cleared his throat loudly from the sidelines. If you two are done making eyes at each other, some of us have work to do. I flushed and scrambled off Ronan, offering him a hand up. He took it, his fingers lacing with mine for just a moment longer than necessary. That evening, after I'd bathed and changed into clean clothes, Ronan found me in the fortress library. It was a massive room, all floor-to-ceiling shelves and the smell of old paper and leather. I thought you'd like this place, he said, coming to stand beside me. And I have something to show you. He led me to a table where ancient texts lay open, their pages yellowed with age. My mother's name caught my eye on one of them. My scholars have been researching your lineage, Ronan explained. Your mother wasn't just human, Lyra. She was descended from moon-blessed bloodlines thought lost centuries ago. The genes were dormant, but when they combined with your father's alpha blood. He touched the text gently. You became the first moon-blessed wolf in 400 years. I stared at the pages, at genealogies traced back through generations. That's why Miriam feared me. She sensed what I was. Yes. Moon-blessed wolves are born once every few centuries. They have abilities other wolves don't. The silver eyes, the ability to command even alphas, magic that runs in their veins. He turned to me. You were chosen by the moon goddess herself for something extraordinary. What am I supposed to do with this? I asked, overwhelmed. Whatever you choose, he said simply. But you were meant for something more than cowering in the shadows. Later, we sat together in his private study, a fire crackling in the hearth. The fortress had grown quiet, most wolves retired for the night. The mate bond pulled me toward him like gravity, and I didn't resist. I curled into the chair beside him, my legs tucked under me. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Anything. Do you want me because of the bond? The question had been eating at me since we left the ceremony. Or because of who I am? Ronan set down the report he'd been reading and turned to face me fully. His expression was serious, thoughtful. The mate bond doesn't create compatibility, he said. It recognizes it. The moon goddess doesn't randomly assign mates. She sees into souls, finds the matches that will challenge each other, strengthen each other, complete each other. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I want you because you survived 5 years of poisoning with grace. Because you chose truth over safety. Because when you finally found your voice, you used it to defend yourself instead of seeking revenge. Because when I look at you, I see strength that makes 300 years of loneliness worth it. My eyes burned. I'm terrified I'll disappoint you. Impossible, he said, and the certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. The space between us felt charged, electric. His eyes dropped to my lips, and I stopped breathing. Lyra, he said softly, I'm going to kiss you now. If you don't want. I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to his before he could finish. The mate bond flared golden and brilliant, singing through every nerve. His hand came up to cup my face, and the kiss deepened, tentative at first, then consuming. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, my wolf was howling in joy. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against my lips. Just to sleep. I want you close. Yes, I whispered. But as we held each other in the firelight, the fortress quiet around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this peace was temporary. Somewhere out there, enemies were gathering. Because a moon-blessed wolf mated to the Wolf King wasn't just rare, it was a threat to everyone who relied on the old power structures. And they would come for us. 2 weeks had passed since I arrived at the Northern Court, and I'd almost started to believe in peace. Almost. I was in the training yard with Ronan, finally managing to hold a partial shift for more than a few minutes, when Marcus appeared at the entrance. His face was grim. "My lord," he said, his voice tight. "We have visitors. The Southern Coalition has sent an emissary." The temperature in the courtyard seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ronan's expression went cold, predatory. He glanced at me, and I saw the war in his eyes, the desire to protect me versus the knowledge that I needed to face this. "Let them in," he said. An hour later, I stood beside Ronan in the Great Hall, watching as 5 wolves entered. They wore the formal regalia of the Southern Coalition, rival alphas who'd always resented Ronan's power. The leader, a silver-haired alpha named Cyrus, stepped forward with a scroll. "Wolf King," he said, bowing just enough to be respectful but not enough to show true deference. "We come bearing a formal challenge." My stomach dropped. Cyrus unrolled the scroll, his voice carrying through the hall. "The Southern Coalition questions the legitimacy of Lyra Vale's claim to be your mate and queen. She is unproven, unstable, and a potential risk to wolf society. We demand a trial by combat. She must defeat a champion to prove her worth." The hall erupted in growls and protests from Ronan's wolves. But Ronan himself went perfectly still, which was somehow more terrifying. "She has nothing to prove," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Then you admit she's too weak to defend her position?" Cyrus smiled coldly. "The old laws are clear, my lord. A challenged queen must prove herself through combat, or forfeit her crown." I felt Ronan's rage through the mate bond, felt him gathering power to obliterate these wolves where they stood. But something in me snapped. I was tired, so tired, of others deciding my value. Of being called weak, broken, insufficient. "I'll do it," I said. Every eye in the hall turned to me. Ronan's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. "Lyra, no. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." I met his eyes, saw the fear there. Not fear of me losing, but fear of losing me. "I'm tired of others deciding whether I'm worthy. I'll fight. And I'll win." The challenge was set for 3 days hence. Ronan threw himself into training me with an intensity that bordered on desperation. We sparred from dawn until dusk, pushing my wolf to emerge faster, to stay longer, to fight harder. On the second night, he found me alone in our shared rooms, staring out at the moonlit mountains. "I've lived 300 years alone," he said softly, coming to stand behind me. His arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against his chest. "I just found you. Don't ask me to risk you." I turned in his arms, cupped his face in my hands. "I'm not asking permission. I need this. Not for them, for me. I need to prove to myself that I'm not the broken girl they made me believe I was." His jaw clenched, but finally, he nodded. "Then I'll make sure you're ready." That night, I couldn't sleep. The mate bond thrummed with restless energy, and my wolf paced endlessly inside me. Finally, I slipped out of bed, pulled on clothes, and made my way to the forest behind the fortress. The moon was full and brilliant overhead. I stood in a clearing, feeling its light on my skin like a physical touch, and for the first time, I spoke to the moon goddess directly. "Help me remember who I am," I whispered. And then I let go. Let go of fear. Let go of doubt. Let go of every lie that had been told about me, every moment I'd made myself small, every second of shame. The shift happened. It was painful and beautiful and complete. My bones reformed, my muscles stretched and changed, fur erupted across my skin. And then I was standing on 4 legs instead of 2, seeing the world through wolf eyes. I was smaller than Ronan's wolf form, but I radiated power. My fur was silver white, gleaming in the moonlight, and when I caught my reflection in a nearby stream, my eyes glowed like starlight. My wolf sang with joy. We ran through the forest, finally free, finally whole. I didn't hear him approach, was too lost in the euphoria of running. But suddenly Ronan was there, his massive black wolf keeping pace beside me. We ran together, 2 halves of one soul, and when we finally stopped in a moonlit meadow, we shifted back. "You did it," he said, his eyes blazing with pride and something deeper. "I did it," I whispered. He kissed me then, fierce and claiming, and we made love under the full moon. The mate bond sealed completely, wrapping around us in golden light, binding us together in a way that went beyond flesh, beyond time. We were one. The next morning, I stood in the fortress courtyard, facing my challenger. The champion the Southern Coalition had chosen was a massive female alpha named Kara. She was undefeated in 50 battles, all muscle and scar tissue and cold efficiency. Wolves had gathered from across territories to watch. The courtyard was packed, silent, waiting. Kara circled me like a predator. I'll try to make this quick, girl. For your mate's sake. The fight began. She was brutal, efficient, devastating. Her first strike sent me sprawling. The second drew blood. The crowd murmured, I was going to lose. But I kept getting up. Every time she knocked me down, I rose. Blood flowed from cuts on my arms, my face, my side. My wolf snarled, urging me to fight back, but I was outmatched in size and experience. Ronan watched from the sidelines, his fists clenched, every muscle in his body coiled with the effort of not intervening. I could feel his anguish through the bond, his desperate need to protect me warring with his trust in my choice. Then something shifted inside me. I stopped fighting like a trained warrior. Started fighting like a moon-blessed wolf. When Kara charged again, I didn't try to match her strength. I used speed, dodging at the last second and letting her momentum carry her past me. Silver light flared from my hands, instinctive magic I didn't know I possessed, and suddenly I could feel her wolf, could sense her intentions before she moved. The tide turned. I caught her off guard, used her own strength against her, moved with a grace and power that came from something ancient and primal. My eyes blazed silver white, and the air around us crackled with energy. The final move came naturally. I pinned her with a combination of physical prowess and magical compulsion, the ability of moon-blessed wolves to command submission. Kara's wolf recognized what I was and submitted, baring her throat. The courtyard erupted in chaos, half celebration, half shock. I stepped back, breathing hard, blood dripping from my wounds but standing tall. Kara rose slowly, respect in her eyes. Well fought, she said simply, then bowed. That evening, the formal coronation took place in the Great Hall. I wore traditional queen's regalia, a gown of silver and white that seemed to glow in the candlelight, and a crown of moonstone that caught the light like trapped starlight. Ronan stood before me in front of the assembled court, holding the crown in his hands. His eyes held everything we'd been through, everything we'd become together. Lyra Vale, moon-blessed and fated mate, he said, his voice carrying through the hall, I name you Queen of the Northern Court and all territories sworn to the Wolf King. He placed the crown on my head, and the weight of it felt right. Not heavy. Just right. I spoke the traditional oath, my voice steady and clear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the wolfless girl or the unwanted orphan or the broken thing no one wanted. I was queen. I was powerful. I was seen. The hall exploded in cheers, wolves howling their approval, and Ronan pulled me close, kissing me before the entire assembly. The mate bond blazed between us, visible to everyone, undeniable proof of what we were to each other. Later, we stood alone on a balcony overlooking the moonlit mountains. The sounds of celebration echoed behind us, but here it was quiet, peaceful. A month ago, I said softly, I thought I'd spend my life invisible. Now I'm a queen. Ronan's arm tightened around my waist. You were always a queen. The crown just makes it official. I leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my back, the warmth of the mate bond wrapping around us like a blanket. I thought about how far I'd come, from rejection to power, from shame to pride, from believing I was broken to knowing I was whole. What comes next? I asked. Whatever we build together, he said. We have enemies, yes. There will always be those who fear change, who want to maintain the old ways. But we have each other. And you, my love, are the most dangerous wolf alive. I smiled, turning in his arms to face him. Is that a compliment? The highest one I can give. He kissed my forehead, then my lips. You're moon-blessed, fierce, compassionate, and absolutely terrifying when someone threatens what's yours. Any wolf with sense should fear you. I laughed, the sound free and genuine. My wolf purred contentedly, finally at peace. Below us, our kingdom stretched out under the stars. There would be challenges ahead, there always would be. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had found my power, my voice, my mate, and my place in this world. I had found myself. Every wolf finds their mate, I whispered, echoing the words my mother had told me so long ago. But I found so much more than that. I found myself. Ronan held me close as the moon rose higher, blessing us both with her silver light. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was meant to be. If you loved this journey from rejection to redemption, from wolfless outcast to moon-blessed queen, follow for more wolf shifter romance stories. Times epic alpha males who respect their mates. Times heroines who discover their hidden power. Times enemies to lovers and fated mate tropes. Times fantasy worlds where magic meets modern life. Follow now for daily chapters. Comment below, would you take the Wolf King's hand? What would you do if you discovered you were moon-blessed? Share this story with someone who loves shifter romance.